The injuries are piling up for the Phoenix Suns, but nevertheless, this was a winnable game, losing 188 to the Philadelphia 76ers on the road. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll talk about the latest injury and why this game got so ugly. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons and a writer at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. Thank you all for making Locked On Suns your first listen today, every day. We are free. We are everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We will have a show for you there. If you're on YouTube, hit the bell down below. Get a notification every time this show puts an episode out. And comment below telling me where you think this whole thing is headed. It's not a great night. But again, a big thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen anyway. You can also follow along at Locked On PHX Suns, where after every home game, we are doing, or every regular season game, we are doing our 7-word or less game takes. That tweet is getting replies as I record here. Today's show, guys, brought to you by Sweat Block. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block and save 20% with the promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. More from them later on in the show. Again, the score 100-88. The Suns put up just 41 points in the second half. Could have been worse. Campaign hit a buzzer beater at the end of the first half that went in. That was an extra 3 points. So this could have been 85 pretty easily if that three-quarter court heave doesn't go in. And it just was not pretty. I want to talk about the Chris Paul part of this whole thing. A right heel injury is what the Suns are calling it. Talk about that in maybe even the third segment, because it's just a bummer to talk about an injury. The reality is we also don't necessarily know the severity or any of that yet. I doubt Monty Williams will say much post-game, although I will keep Twitter open as I'm recording. But let's hit this first. Devin Booker was incredible, and I do think that's where you have to start from a variety of angles. One, the most positive note, De'Anthony Melton cannot guard Devin Booker. That's always been true. Matisse Thybulle cannot guard Devin Booker. That has also always been true. This team did not have an answer for him. There was a stretch at the end of the third quarter, midway through the end of the third quarter, where he was like a bat out of hell. I don't know of a better way to put it. He had, I want to say he got to the free throw line 5 times in that quarter, maybe 4. He had a stretch there where he had 3 of 4 possessions that he drew a foul, got to the free throw line. And the other possession that he did not draw the foul on of those 4 was a pull-up 3 that he nailed, I believe, in De'Anthony Melton's face. And he was excellent throughout that entire frame. You look at his box score, the turnovers, I don't want to say unavoidable. I don't want to let Booker off the hook in that way necessarily, just because of the injuries around him. But I guess what I'm saying is it's going to happen. This is kind of how Booker is. I think we'll talk about the other guys stepping up, but aside from that, you're gonna look at the box score and you're gonna feel like he did everything he needed to do. Now, could he take more threes? Absolutely. But when he's getting to the free throw line 14 times and he's making half his shots and he's getting 5 assists, the threes are sort of nitpicking. But yes, I guess that's one area. Playing 43 minutes tonight, he was only a -9. I mean, everyone else looked considerably worse, from Payne to Ayton to Bridges to Paul. All those other guys had a worse plus-minus than he did. So he did just about everything. But another side of his performance tonight, too, that's worth noting as we look forward. Even if Chris Paul's healthy, frankly, even if he just had to leave the game and it's just some pain, awkwardness, whatever, and he's back. 43 minutes Monty has this way, and the roster is not doing him any favors here, but Monty has this way sometimes of, when something gets bad, when something's not working, his answer tends to be play the starters more, do more of what you're already comfortable doing instead of getting uncomfortable. I think it's kind of a fair way to put it, and he tends to just ride Bridges and Booker when there's an injury in the middle of a game, when there's foul trouble, when there's a game that's maybe uncomfortably close. He tends to just say, hey, Mikal, you're going to play 100 minutes tonight. And that's how we're going to respond to this. Like on Friday night against the Portland Trailblazers, Booker played 38 minutes, Bridges played 38 minutes. That's just what this is, but it's not going to be a long-term solution. It's fine when it's one night. It's fine when there are fouls or weirdness within a game. It's not fine if you're talking about Cam's not playing, Torrey Craig has a bad night, and we can't get anything going. You guys are going to play 40-plus minutes. It's number one, just not going to get the best nights out of them. It's not going to get the best performance out of either one of those guys. It's also not going to be something that helps your team stay healthy. I know Monty is a little old-fashioned in that way. It hasn't necessarily come back to bite him. Book and Bridges in particular kind of are Iron Men. But if I'm looking at Booker's box score today, it's just hard for me to not narrow in on that. It's hard for me to look and say, if the answer here, and we'll have plenty more on this as more details on Paul come out, and we get hopefully some snippets of information about this trade market. The answer can't be Booker just plays a ton more. It's not sustainable for health. It's not sustainable for getting the best out of him. It's not sustainable for the ultimate goal of the season of, winning in the playoffs, winning a championship. I'm looking now. Monty Williams confirms Chris Paul hurt his foot, but you don't know much else. It was that play that they showed on the broadcast of trying to get around a screen on defense. Paul Reed sets the screen. Paul's closing out to De'Anthony Melton. He just kind of bumped or landed awkwardly, and we'll see what all that looks like. But that's the Booker side of it. I want to get to Ayton and Bridges. We're just going to hit the big guys today, the stars. They are the centerpiece when a game goes this way. First, today's show brought to you, as I said previously, by Sweatblock. I recently went to a talk that James Jones gave on the ASU campus. I work at ASU for my day job, as many of you know, and I wore, because it was at the law school, some nice clothes. I don't love to be an undershirt guy. I don't love to be a jacket guy, so I just go button up and kind of roll out. But big crowd of people, little stuffy. We know Arizona sun, even when it's cool or cold outside, doesn't do you any favors. And I started to work up a little bit of a sweat. But if I had Sweatblock, my problem would have been solved, because Sweatblock wipes are your little secret to confidence. The Sweatblock wipe works for up to 7 days per use. Apply them on a Sunday and you'll help stay dry all week. Avoid those awkward scenarios. And you don't have to be embarrassed about it. You don't have to be anxious about it, because it's not like your typical deodorant. It's a wipe. You open it, you wipe it. It helps lock things up, keep you dry. And it's not something where you're having to sneak into a bathroom right before the event, or you're trying to fix it in the middle and you're already sweaty, but you're trying to do something. It's none of that. It's easy, it's ahead of time, and it's simple. If you or someone you love is experiencing this type of embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweatblock today. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. That's promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. They are also available on Amazon. Mikal Bridges. I mentioned the 44 minutes for him, Monty riding him pretty hard, and he, aside from that, just was not good enough. Deandre Ayton, you would say the same. 14 points and 7 rebounds for Ayton in his 31 minutes, and for Bridges, 15 points, 5 rebounds, just 1 assist. I want to go one by one with these two, so because I started with Bridges, I'll circle back on him. This is true whether Chris Paul misses extended time or not. Mikal Bridges needs to be doing more on offense. And the reality is, as I talk through all of this, guys, like there's no easy answer, right? Like you say that and then it's like, all right, well then who's going to be the guy who steps up on defense, right? Because we just saw today Torrey Craig did not look spectacular. Damian Lee, although he can manage some matchups on defense, he was kind of getting owned a little bit by Tobias Harris, if that's not overstating it. He was just getting taken into the post by Harris, and Harris was having his way. So it's like, all right, if Bridges needs to do more on offense, then where's the defense coming from? You're running out of options. You're running out of great answers, but 2 3-point attempts, only 12 shots taken, and only 1 assist for Bridges just is not going to cut it. And honestly, the 15 points is a little bit of a lie. The 12 shot attempts is a little bit of a lie. He had a layup off the glass that was called as a goaltend by Embiid in this game. Bridges did late in the game. He had a couple other shots. I believe he scored 6 points in the fourth quarter. So heading into that, he had 9. Ayton missed a little chunk of time because he landed wrong on top of Joel Embiid's foot and jostled his ankle, tweaked his ankle a little bit. But still, 31 minutes, only 11 shot attempts, only 2 free throw attempts, and only 7 rebounds in a game where you knew you were going up against Embiid. They have a big team with Harris and Tucker both starting. Those guys can get on the glass as well. And then even Maxey and Melton are good rebounders. The Suns got out-rebounded by 11 tonight. And when you look at that and you see that the starting center played 31 minutes, only had 7 boards, it's just not good enough. And again, a lot of this is with or without Paul, but obviously it's even more stark when you're losing the know-how, the offensive creation ability, all that stuff that Paul brings. It's just going to put it under a microscope more. But even if Paul is playing and you're just talking about not having Jay Crowder, not having Cam Johnson, we knew Bridges and Ayton were going to need to step up. And the end result here is that the Suns had a 94.8 offensive rating, which means if you extrapolate this all out, this game's performance out over 100 possessions, you're looking at them scoring 94.8 points. Or you could look at it as they scored 0.948 points per possession in this game. And only 88 real points. They only generated 19 threes. Okay, like I talked about the rebounding already. So I think the two things are, and Ayton too, I thought I was moving on. I can't move on. Ayton missed 2 layups in this game. So we could have been talking about an 8-11 performance where he's scoring, 18 points. I'm not saying that's the difference in the game, but he didn't even get the easy stuff today. And I think Joel Embiid, frankly, was not at his best. Joel Embiid had the worst 33-point, 10-rebound game that I can remember. The rebounds were inflated because he was getting his own misses at times. He really just lived at the free throw line, made all of his 16 free throws, and he closed out the game well late, getting into the post, having some elbow jumpers, getting some assists, orchestrating things on offense to close out the game. But this was not the best Embiid performance, and Ayton still wasn't able to live up to the task. He still was missing the easy stuff, let alone the hard stuff, creating for himself, really, getting Embiid in foul trouble, or any of these dreams we might have of how Ayton could gradually start to take over control of a game like this. He wasn't even close to that. So I think for him, it's assertion. You listen to guys like Shaq and Charles Barkley, and I know I'm thinking of them because of Joel Embiid, and they have such a trolling relationship with Embiid in some ways, but you listen to those guys and what they always say, whether it's a big man or not, these are the types of games that good, great players stand up and own, right? This is, my starting 4 just went down. If I'm Deandre Ayton, I need to step up more. I'm playing against a guy who's finished second in MVP voting back-to-back years, one of the best players in the entire league. But it was Embiid's first game back from illness, and you could see it. He was gassed. He's always gassed in games, but he was especially bad today, coming back in, playing 37 minutes right away. And so what Ayton What you would like to see Ayton do is grab that by the horns and own it. Own this game. I'm not saying score 30 points. Do it his way. I'm not, asking anything of him that we haven't seen before. Dominate the glass. Keep your fouls in check. Don't foul Embiid too much. And score. Score as much as you possibly can. If that's 18 points, if that's 25 points, if that's 35 points, do that. And I think this game looks a lot different. For Bridges, he did have the ball in his hands a bit. He had a really nice pass cross court at one point to, I believe, Damian Lee for a three. It didn't turn into assists. You might have missed it. I would think it was in the second quarter. He had the ball in his hands, going to the basket here and there. But I mentioned that layup against Joel Embiid that got called as a goaltend. Examples like that where he's just kind of taking it in, attempting a layup. Those are things you like to see. The threes are the problem and the assists are the problem for me. Because even though I can look at the game and I watch the game and you watch the game and you can see Bridges had the ball in his hands. We know that as a fact. I don't know if it was, if we go touches tonight and go on NBA.com and look at it, was it the same amount? Was it less? Who knows? Did he have open passes and they just didn't turn into made shots and so the assists are low because everybody was missing? There's all these ways, but you need to impact the game more than you did. I think that's the bottom line if you're Mikal Bridges, right? He's not taking enough threes. I don't know what is going on there. That's been the case all year, even when the Suns were winning games, even when everyone was healthy. He was not taking enough threes. He is not taking enough threes. That's the strength of his game. He's a 38+% three-point shooter depending on the season. He's a good, really good shooter. He can make deep shots. He can make corner shots. He can do whatever. He can have a quick release. He can have, he's versatile. That's a strength. Take the shots when they're there. The Suns need to draw up plays where he's getting those shots. This is time. Whether Paul is available or not going forward, even if it's just Cam out and Crowder out, you need Bridges to do more on offense. And so Booker did a lot. We saw the limits of that. The answer cannot be more minutes for Booker and more minutes for Bridges, and that's our solution. These two guys, Bridges and Ayton, need to step up no matter who's available going forward, no matter what the lineup looks like around them. And that's the bottom line. There's just no way around it. Want to talk about the Chris Paul injury, the rotation around him, and the starting lineup, actually. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting. Info, stats, news, and analysis all year long. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and even esports. They've got it all at betonline.net. I'm looking here at the NFL odds for next week. The Cardinals are going on the road to Los Angeles, where they are only 3-point underdogs. Now, I know the Rams have been awful, but that feels crazy to me. The Cardinals are going through every week. Is their coach going to get fired? Chatter. They have looked bad. The game at home here, I believe, was at least a touchdown win by Los Angeles, so that line does not make any sense. You can get minus 107 odds if you take the Cardinals, minus 113 if you take the Rams. Those are both pretty solid. The over-under is 43.5. That also feels kind of high. Some juicy stuff there on the Cardinals, but as always, BetOnline has you covered for everything. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Today's show also brought to you by My Solar Nerd. If you live in Arizona, you know that people come up to our doors and knock, knock, knock. Here is a cash grab. It's called free solar, but actually, hold on, it's not. The catch is you actually owe a lot. You actually don't get what you want, but My Solar Nerd fixes all of that. Their goal is simple: help you get the best solar system to fit your needs. They've been doing this for a while. They understand that a happy customer is an educated customer, and they understand the nuances of going solar here in Arizona because they're based here in Arizona. Once you're ready, they'll put their industry knowledge to work for you by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and Better Business Bureau accredited installers in their network. They'll also make sure you will figure out all the credits and incentives along the way, and they'll manage the entire project for you from start to finish to keep you in the know and make sure your transition is as smooth as possible. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when you book a no-commitment evaluation. This promotion only for Locked On listeners and only for homeowners. No solar panels in apartment complexes yet, although I know we all wish we could. Visit mysolarnerd.com, select Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us section, and make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process, again, by visiting mysolarnerd.com and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, going solar does not need to be complicated, and mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. Closing things out here, Chris Paul out missed the entire second half with a right heel soreness is what they called it. Dwayne Rankin doesn't have much of an update outside of Monty confirming that he got hurt trying to get around a screen. We're probably not getting a diagnosis tonight. We're probably not getting anything too sophisticated. The Suns obviously are on this road trip without Cam Johnson now. They play in Minnesota on Wednesday night. It's hard to say what they can do without Chris Paul. They're just running up against it right now. It was good to see that Cameron Payne came back tonight. I thought overall he played pretty well. He had a couple of times against that Joel Embiid drop defense where he got caught in no man's land. He had a floater that clanked off the front of the rim. He had a mid-range jumper that missed when he wasn't able to get all the way to the basket, didn't have a pass, and didn't have that pull-up three. That's kind of been the problem with Cam all along when those plays crop up. But overall, 6 of 14 from the field, 5 assists, 3 turnovers. A pretty typical campaign game. I don't think he killed them. If he can start, we've seen teams have maybe figured him out a little more than when he was starting against the LA Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, but I think Payne is fine. Behind him, you start to have some more questions. Landry Shamet just has not done much of anything this season. It's just not working with him. Dwayne Washington does not seem to have the full trust of Monty Williams. He's also been away. I don't think he traveled on this road trip. He did play in the home game on Saturday, but I believe he had a child born with his girlfriend, and so I think he needed to be available once Cam was out and Payne was out on Saturday, but I think he stayed in Phoenix. So he didn't play tonight. He really doesn't have Monty's trust, it seems, anyway. So at guard, you're getting thin. At forward, you're getting even thinner. And that's where I want to go next. This is sort of the bench mob vibe check, but it's really, there's not much of a difference between bench and starters right now with how thin this team is getting. No Jay Crowder, that's been the case all year. No Cam Johnson, torn meniscus. Listen to yesterday's show for updates there. Torrey Craig was just not very good tonight. And you can sort of see it because Mikal Bridges was largely guarding Tobias Harris. Torrey Craig was guarding PJ Tucker. I would have to go back to see exactly how it matched up to open the game against Tyrese Maxey. I believe Booker was guarding him. No, Booker was guarding PJ Tucker. I'm off here. But you saw so much switching. I guess my point being, with Tucker in there, with Melton in there, Craig didn't have as big of a job to do. The Sixers run a very Embiid-centric offense. Craig's main strength outside of, occasionally guarding certain guys one-on-one is he going to be in the right spots. He's going to be able to rotate and maybe make a weak side block. He's going to rebound, all these things. And when the game kind of slows down the way that it can with Embiid, I get why he wasn't super impactful. He didn't make his shots. Certain games are going to be better for him than others. But he has to impact the game. Like or it's not that he does, but they need players who are going to impact the game. It can't just be all Booker, and it doesn't feel like Bridges and Ayton are consistent enough at this point to step up in this way. I don't want to overreact to one game, but this is just sort of the mental calculus that I'm sure this coaching staff is doing. And so with that being said about Craig, with the need to find some answers, I don't know why we might not just see Damian Lee start. Okay? Have Bridges start at the 4. Have Lee start at the 3, Booker at the 2, Payne at the 1, Paul at the 1, whatever that is, Ayton at the 5, obviously. I understand wanting to protect Bridges in terms of injuries. Like you look at the game on Wednesday night with Minnesota. Case in point, right? If you were to go down this path and Bridges were to start at the 4, you're talking about him all of a sudden guarding Karl Anthony Towns, right? Or he's guarding Rudy Gobert. Those guys are, 3 inches taller than him, 4 inches taller than him. In the case of Towns, 100 pounds heavier potentially? Like, I don't even know. Not 100, probably 60, 50. That's not an easy position to be put into. Bridges never been an awesome rebounder, but you don't have great options. And again, tonight was a game where the Suns were out-rebounded by 11. They needed to get on the glass. They needed to fight a little bit better defensively, and, it didn't matter. Craig wasn't able to be a help there. And you see, even when, Damian Lee's getting backed down in the post and Tobias Harris is scoring over the top of him, even then Monty doesn't go back to Craig, who would have theoretically been an option there. He just doesn't seem to he seems to trust Lee more. So why not just start him? Even if you're going to get into some bad matchups. Like, we can look through the schedule, right? Okay, so you have Minnesota on Wednesday, but then you have Orlando on Friday. That's another pretty big team where Mikal's going to be banging around with some of those guys. But then after that, you're looking at Miami. Okay, Jimmy Butler kind of plays the 4 for them. Maybe that's Mikal's main matchup. Golden State, you're talking about Draymond. They just said they're going to start playing even smaller. Utah, you're talking about, Lauri Markkanen at the 4 for them. New York, pretty big. LA, the Lakers, LeBron. Like, it's the NBA in 2022. There's going to be some bad matchups. There's going to be some fine matchups. It's not ideal, but that brings us to the final thing. And we're going to talk about this more with Aaron Edwards tomorrow. Today is not the day to do a trade show. I did stuff about trades yesterday when the news on Cam came down. I'll do more once we know more about Paul. And Aaron Edwards will be here tomorrow. That'll be a topic for us to hit. But that's the answer. We all know that. And I'm not going to do a game recap show and just, sit here with, the trade machine open and just go down that rabbit hole. But as much as there's not a great answer, as much as there might be some matchups where Bridges is exposed, where you're risking injury to him by playing him against a guy like Cat or a guy like Julius Randle or, Bol or whatever it might be, you're just buying yourself some time until you can make a trade. Maybe that's December 15th when certain guys become available to be dealt. Maybe it's tomorrow. We don't know. But especially if Chris Paul is missing time now, we have no reason to believe Cam Johnson will be back anytime soon. Like I said, they should be operating as if he's missing the season. You just have to make the Crowder trade. You have to do something. You have to, even signing somebody on a 10-day contract at this point, signing somebody on a full year contract, maybe that guarantees at some point in December or January. Like, we're to that point, and that's really where you start to look. Is Carmelo Anthony somebody who can play for you? Do you have a G Leaguer or something like that? Can you get Ish Wainwright back? Maybe he helps you figure out some of this stuff. The answer is not fully on this rotation right now, but the games don't stop coming, right? There's a game on Wednesday whether the Suns have all their ducks in a row or not. They need to get it figured out. That'll do it for today's show, guys. 100-88. Not a great loss. Not a great night. Not a great week for Suns fans, but you came here anyway, so a big thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen on this Tuesday and every day. In the meantime, before our next show, go make Locked On Sports Today your second listen to get caught up on everything in the world of sports in 20 minutes or less, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.